On this week's show, a special presentation of Music Madness, our exclusive interview with musician, singer, and actor John Taylor. John's best known as one of the founding members and bass player of one of the most influential and stylish pop rock groups of the past 20 years, Duran Duran. After releasing his first full-length LP, Feelings Are Good and Other Lies, in 1994, John Taylor closed his eyes to Duran Duran and a little more than a year later embarked on a solo career. Since then, he joined Neurotic Outsiders and released a CD in 1996. Like his first solo project, the PowerStation, in 1985, Neurotic Outsiders included a collection of musicians from other bands, like Steve Jones of the Sex Pistols, Duff McKagan, and Matt Sorum from Guns N' Roses. 1997 brought another solo release from John, an EP entitled Autodidact. In the last 2 years, John has assembled a group of musicians and released his second full-length solo CD for his latest incarnation, John TaylorTerroristen. John Taylor sat down with us in October of 1998 during his first East Coast tour with the new band. In this episode, John discusses his first temporary departure from Duran Duran, the PowerStation, in 1985, and his solo effort the following year after. Let's take a look at part one of 3 parts here on our Music Madness special, John Taylor, Past, Present, and Future. Welcome to another edition of Music Madness. I'm your host, John Harris, and we are here with the legendary Mr. John Taylor. Thanks for showing up on the show, John.
You're welcome. It's good to be here.
Is it now?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. We're really happy to have him here today because he's currently on an East Coast tour with his new band, Terroristen, and you just finished a tour over on the West Coast as well, didn't you?
We've done a couple of tours of the West Coast. We started in May, and we did about 5 shows, and that went okay. So then we thought, oh, okay, we'll do about 10 shows, and now we're doing 13 shows on this tour. We call it the Baby Steps Tour. You know, it's like if everything goes okay and nobody gets hurt, then we go back and do it again. You know.
I see.
I mean, I should explain that because I've spent a lot of time on the road, and I've done some long tours, and I really got turned off to them, quite honestly. Plus the fact I'm singing with this band, I had no idea how I was going to hold up.
Right. And playing bass as well, so tying you up in 2 different ways as well. Right. Where did you get the name?
I got it off a poster in a German airport.
Did you?
Sure. Yeah, it was like a wanted poster, you know. The Baader Meinhof game.
And did it hit you right away? You said, oh, right, that's the name? Or?
Well, actually, it hit me straight away as something I wanted to mimic for some artwork. And what I really liked about it was that it had this one character, this one very dangerous-looking lady, and it had her with brown hair and blonde hair.
Right.
It was the same photograph, and I thought, oh, I got it. Very Andy Warhol. I thought I've got to take that idea and use it somewhere. Yeah. So I took a snapshot of it, and it sat above my desk for a few months, and then when I started thinking about a band name, I just came back to it. I wanted to have a band. I wanted to have a band name, but I wanted my name to be in there. I was thinking of Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band. I was thinking about that, but I was thinking, well, what's the Zeitgeist? You know, well, it's the Prodigy. Well, Terroristen. It's kind of got that, you know, sort of 90s Cosmo kind of angry thing to it. I don't know.
Why don't we take a look at a little bit of your performance here tonight at the Life nightclub here in New York City. See you at your most recent incarnation. Yeah. Right? And let's go to that. We'll go to a live track right now from Life nightclub. Here's John TaylorTerroristen live in New York. Check it out, and we'll be back with more Music Madness.
Anyway, this is a song, this is called Better Way. Set up the mission. Unfurl the flag. It's time to load down. Take my head out the back. me, baby, take me a wife. With these things, maybe I'll be alright. There's a better way. There must be a better way when I need it. Set up the museum. An island in the sun. More things that I don't need, just to pick me up. Head for the waterfall. Don't drown in the juice. Make the right noises. Maybe I'll be alright. It's so hard to fly and so easy to die. It's easier to die, to turn a blind eye. But now, there's a better way. I know that there's a better way. I know there's a better way when I need it. And I need it for sure every day.
And welcome back to Music Madness. You just finished watching this man right over here, Mr. John Taylor, in John TaylorTerroristen.
It's true.
It's the official name of the band. There it is, all together. And I hope you enjoyed that clip. And now we're going to talk a little bit more about, we're going to go back a little bit, because now you've been involved with a lot of different groups over the years, as early as 1985 with the PowerStation. Even though initially you were the creator, along with Nick Rhodes of Duran Duran, you were also the person who pretty much was the backbone behind PowerStation, along with Andy Taylor. How do you feel now? I mean, I know you play some of the PowerStation songs in your set, but how do you feel now about the music as a whole? Do you feel it still stands up to par? I'm
very proud of it, actually. Are you talking about the PowerStation Stadium too?
Yes, yes.
Oh yeah, I think it's a state-of-the-art record. Actually, I think it defines that moment in the middle '80s, sound-wise. Mm-hmm. You know, I know a lot of people that went out and tried to tried to get that sound, you know, which was really...
Yeah, actually, and they actually pulled a few of your members as well. Yeah. I think I know who you're talking about.
No, nothing. I'm not doing that. I mean, I'm quite happy.
No innuendos here.
You know, it was fortunate. It was just a collection, like most good things, a collection of individuals that just fell into bed with each other. You know, Bernard Edwards producing, Jason Casaro, who's a engineer here from New Jersey, amazing guy that really knew how to work the studio here, the PowerStation, and we got the best out of that studio at the time. And Tony Thompson, an amazing drummer who was really, you know, ready to rock, and it was just one of those lucky things. I mean, we actually reformed a few years ago, and it was a very, very hard, very tough act to follow. Was that first record?
Yeah, you know, I was actually going to ask you about that. I mean, back in, I think it was the summer of '94, you were recording with the PowerStation for a potential reunion LP,
right.
And when the album came out, a lot of people were surprised because you weren't included on the credits. I mean, why weren't you in the final cut of the album or the subsequent tour that followed?
Well, I just didn't want to do it. You know, I liked the idea of making the music and getting involved with these players and making some music, but I didn't want to commit to 12 months of promotion and touring. It took me a long time. I mean, this place that I'm at today with this band, and it's taken me a long time to get here. And I've gotten here as much by a process of elimination as much as anything else. Well, this band isn't working for me anymore, so I'm going to leave, and I'll try something else, and this isn't really working either. And you know, I didn't really. I tried not to have a solo career. I tried not to go solo because it's a bit of a cliche.
So
really.
it was kind of would you say comforting in a way to say, oh, well, maybe I'll just, you know, go into the PowerStation and do that for a while and get that solo energy out of me and do something apart from Duran.
Yeah, we were on the road. Duran were on the road for a year and a half with the wedding album.
All over the world.
Yeah, and I was just ready to do something else. I was ready to work with somebody else. And initially I had a great time with it, but I wasn't really in control of myself at the time. It wasn't a great time for me personally, and I was just trying to do less than more at that point, you know, rather than take on another project and be in two bands.
Well, you know, I found it very interesting that when the PowerStation, I mean, the actual incarnation of the group included Robert Palmer, later would be replaced by Michael DeBars. But there was this one moment in time where PowerStation, as the original lineup, got together, and that was on Saturday Night Live.
Right.
And so a lot of you New Yorkers out there know about this gig that I'm talking about. And I just want to ask you about that particular gig. I mean, what was the mindset of the band at that time? Because I don't believe Some Like It Hot was even released yet at that point. And correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, we were starting to have fun with the fact that the public perception of who we were was so strange, you know. It was such a strange combination.
Right.
And I mean, I got it with the Neurotic Outsiders. Actually, just our presence, just going out on stage, it put people through a, you know, it messed with them, you know.
Yeah.
And we really played it up on that Saturday Night Live. I mean, Andy and I were both wearing silk dresses. I think.
Yeah.
And Robert was in his lawyer's suit, you know, as formal as you know. And we had a very funky backbeat and a big horn section. It was great. I was kind of disappointed I was very disappointed when Robert decided not to tour with the band, because I think at that point it would have been an incredible touring band, and that was a disappointment. But you know, he had to go. He had to do what he had to do, and it really worked for him.
I think later
it worked for all of us, actually. I mean, it got me a lot of kudos, you know. People were...
Because it became more focus on, well, John was really the man behind the band, or?
I think just like holding my own with, well, Andy and I, holding our own with the New York session guys. You know, it took us out of that pop bracket, and...
I think that was very effective. I mean, because, like, for an example, like the bass solo and Get It On, for an example, you know, those kind of... That kind of level of playing, I don't know, it was necessarily predominant in the Duran music, as well as for Andy too. I mean, that kind of guitar work was, you know, pretty elaborate, and I don't know if that side was shown as much in Duran's music per se.
I don't know. I think there was something there was something very instinctive about the way the band worked initially, and you know, the way, you know, what I brought to the table. I wasn't a particularly learned player, but I had a definite idea of how I wanted to sound.
Right.
And I mean, that's what usually happens with young bands, is they hit, you know, the hit on something unusual, is there's some conceptual twist. You know, I wanted to play bass lines like chic bass lines, but I was actually a young punk, you know, so I was playing them with the kind of energy that if I'd have been in the Clash, you know.
Right.
And you know, that was my story, and everybody else, you know, everybody else had something similar. And I think that's what comes across in those early records as much as anything. There's a lot of ideas. Everybody's vying for position.
Sure.
You know, which in a lot of bands, a lot of American bands in particular, you don't get. You really, it's more driven towards the singer and the song,
right.
and everybody really just serves the song. Whereas with us, we were running all over there. I mean, there's bass lines were bubbling over there. You know, drum percussion patterns and keyboards. Right. Made for a very exciting mix.
Were you surprised, really, with the success of the PowerStation? I mean, the fact that you actually needed to even consider going on tour, and, I mean, Something Like It Hot did get a lot of attention and got the airplay and everything else, and then Bang a Gong followed it.
Well, it did, but nothing was a surprise back then, because it was just a sort of, you know, it was just a wild ride, and right. Everything we touched was turning to gold. I mean, Kajagoogoo were #1, you know.
Oh.
I mean, you know, I mean, there's a point in your career where just everything you do, people want a part of, and
right.
You know, it had a lot of. When we were recording PowerStation, we had a lot of attention from the label, and the Capitol guys were coming down, getting very excited. You know, wow, we've got this. You know, this is not in the contract, you know,
right.
We can't stop this guy's working, this is great. You know, and the live album's coming out, you know, and we've been after Robert Palmer. I mean, Robert Palmer then went and signed with EMI for years.
Oh, right.
And, you know, it opened a lot of doors for people, and obviously it was incredibly exciting time to be #1, you know, to have two different songs in the top 10 or whatever with different bands, but, you know, it was just the time.
Well, you know, the initial whole beginnings of the PowerStation, as a lot of people know out there, was the idea of doing Bang a Gong, Get It On, which I believe is the other way. Oh no, it's called Bang a Gong in England and called Get It On here.
No, it's the other way around.
Right.
The other way around. It's called Get It On in England.
Well, Get It On.
I guess it was too much of an innuendo for the American audiences.
You see, I would think it would be the other way around.
Well,
actually.
you would do, yeah, but it was Bang a Gong over here.
Yeah. Well, whichever way you'd like, Bang a Gong, Get It On, or Get It On, Bang a Gong, is one of the better videos of the two that, well, actually there was 3 made for the PowerStation, but that one was the next one we're going to play today on Music Madness. So we're going to see John back from what was, I think, summer of '85 with the long hair and the white jacket and the shoulder action, doing his, doing this thing with Andy, Tony, and Robert. Here's the PowerStation back from '85 with Bang a Gong, Get It On.
sleeping, you my girl. Get it on, bang a gong, get it on. Get it on, bang a gong, get it on. Get it on.
Welcome back to Music Madness. You just finished watching the PowerStation with Bang Gong, Get It On from 1985, and we're sitting here with Mr. John Taylor this week on Music Madness. Following the PowerStation was the first time you ever really embarked on a solo career, going into the soundtrack for the movie 9.5 Weeks with a song called I Do What I Do. How'd that come about? I mean...
Well, through Michael DeBar, actually.
Yeah.
We'd had a big hit with Obsession, and he got a call from the whoever was putting the soundtrack together, asking him if he'd like to contribute something for, and I snatched it out of his hand. You know, he had an idea, and I took it and developed it, and it became that song. And we were going to have Lisa Del Bello sing it, and she decided at the last minute that it wasn't the right thing for her to do. So I sang it by default, really.
And I believe you produced the video for that as well, is that right?
I directed it, yeah.
You directed the video.
Yeah.
Right. Well,
for my pains.
For your pains.
Yeah.
Well, here on our two-part special that we're bringing you on John Taylor and his new band Terroristen, I want to show you the first thing about I Do What I Do. Actually, I want to ask you one last question about it. Listening to that song now, comparing it to what you're doing today, how would you compare the two? I mean, do you look at it now and go, you know, gosh, it wasn't really... Are you proud of it? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. In fact, I remember I bumped into Jim Kerr from Simple Minds, and he told me it was the best thing he'd ever heard Duran do. Which is a kind of a backhanded compliment.
Right.
No, I do. I do like it, and I will probably play it one of these days.
Yeah, I think it might be something to consider.
Yeah.
Actually, for a live performance.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get to it. Back from 1986 with this one, going way back. With John sitting in a very, very dark theater. I Do What I Do from the 9.5 Weeks soundtrack. We'll see you back after this with more of Music Madness and more from John Taylor.
I do what I do.
That concludes part 1 of our 3-part Music Madness special, John Taylor, Past, Present, and Future. Stay tuned next week for part 2 for more exclusive coverage of the New York City debut performance of John TaylorTerroristen, and more from John Taylor discussing his new band and the making of his solo video.
Feelings are good.